I drank pots and pots and pots and pots of strong black coffee, trying to keep my sleepy soul awake. But the sleepiness still comes along, and when it does, it's fast and strong. I end up with a bad case of the shakes.
Hey, good morning, it's Guido. I am back from vacation. Good to see you guys. I got my coffee, ready for a coffee talk. We've got some things to talk about today. It's been 2 weeks. Nothing major, but a few things. We'll go over the patch notes for the new patch that just came out. A couple interesting things to note in that. Second section will be a bunch of small notes. I'll go over those when we get there. We're going to dive into a balance sidebar, which is going to be related to the small notes that I'm going to talk about. And the last, I've got the latest in Wargaming buffoonery, and I'm going to title that How to Pander. So let's get started. All right, let's get started with the patch notes 9.19.1. Been released out into the wild, and what do we have going on? Let's get down through here. We got some matchmaker changes. So right off the top, I find something very interesting being said by Wargaming. Something I don't think I believe. Maybe you do. 2 months into the 9.18 release, the game receives the first blah, blah, blah. We saw a lot of confusion after stopping SPGs from entering and forming platoons. Okay. And in hindsight, oh, this should be interesting. We could have explained the reasoning behind this decision a bit better. Interesting. The restriction was designed as a temporary measure. Sure it was. To help us assess the effect of comprehensive SPG changes, had on the overall experience. Having analyzed the data, we are returning SPGs to platoons with a maximum limit of 1 per platoon. Okay, folks, anyone believe that? I mean, come on. Look, you made a mistake. You pissed off a bunch of your players. They wanted to platoon. Just say, hey, look, we let you guys platoon again because we made a mistake. You're trying to feed us the idea that somehow this was all planned. It's all in the plan. Okay. Boot camp, that's good. Good stuff. So that's for new guys learning how to play. A lot more explanation. Haven't gone through it yet, but I will. I'll get back with you on those. The personal missions have changed a little bit. That's good. Unfortunately, there's a couple of them I wish would change that they didn't touch. They've got a new nation in there as well. I won't go through all the personal missions. Poland, obviously, is the new nation coming into there. There's some changes to SPG vehicle types. The platoon thing, as already mentioned, it looks like they have a new marker, and then the oblique view is a little bit better. It's not as sensitive, which is good, because that was kind of painful. They changed the gores metal. The threshold for the damage is lower, and it's 8 times instead of 10 times damage. So I've already been collecting a couple of those with some of my already. It used to be very easy. Then it became hard. Now that they've reduced the requirements, it's pretty darn easy once again. There's the aiming mode thing where they reduced or changed the camera settings. And they've reduced or increased, the amount of experience earned in credits for causing damage to stunned enemies. I'm going to talk about this in a little while, not today, but later on. But essentially, this idea that stunned enemies are going to be attacked by your friends and you're going to gain a bunch of experience from it, from my experience, has not been panning out. And I'll talk about that in another coffee talk at some point in the future. Here's the changes to the personal missions. SPG Hunter, Surprise Blow for MT7. There's all kinds of different little minor changes to this. The one I wish they would really change is MT15, especially at the Object 260 or Chapter 4 as they call it. It's 4,000 damage to a TD or 2 TDs with your medium tank. Now, I don't know where they ever got the idea that medium tanks are TD hunters, that they're somehow the counter to TDs. That just simply isn't true. It's a fairly random kind of requirement. We've got some technical characteristics changes, which I thought were extremely interesting. These two especially right here. So the 121, the Chinese Tier 10 medium, now has 5 degrees of depression. That's huge. That is a big deal. It's still not much, but it's not as painful as 3.5. and the 113 went 5 to 7. From 5 to 7. That's a fantastic tank, and really its only major weakness was pretty bad depression. And -7 is very workable on the maps that they have in a lot more places than 5 was. So that is a fantastic change for the 113, and kind of out of the blue, out of nowhere, that thing got thrown in there. And we got the reworking to HD quality for a bunch more tanks, so it looks like they're probably closing in on finishing these bad boys. I don't know where they are, but they've done a lot of work. And then there's some other minor changes in here. The one that I thought was interesting is matchmaking within particular tiers. Now, this is something I've talked about in the past. Their problem with matchmaking is not balancing SPGs, TDs, and lights. Their problem is dealing with the medium-heavy imbalance, which I've talked about multiple times. They still haven't touched that, unfortunately. But what they did do is they are making within tiering the matchmaking between scouts, TDs, and arty the same, so that you don't end up with a tier 10 arty. Say you got a 357, and one side's got a tier 10 arty, and the other side's got a tier 8 arty matched against it. That's the kind of imbalance. And it says decreased, right? So the mismatch in the number within each particular tier will be decreased. That doesn't mean you won't ever see one, but they're working on it. So that's a good thing. That's a positive fix, but it's still the problem of mediums and heavies being imbalanced that goes with the attendant HP pool issue and then the attendant armor issue. So they really need to work on that. They keep talking about they're going to continue to work on it, but I've never really heard them say, yeah, mediums and heavies are something we need to go after. So we will see if that ever happens. They did some voice messing around. They're really interested in their voices and their gun sounds. I mean, they spend a lot of time on those, and I'll be quite honest, I don't even care. I suppose there are some people out there, but goodness gracious. All right. And there's a lot of technical issues that they fixed, and this one actually made me laugh because they fixed inappropriate operation of the reset button. Now what was that reset button doing being inappropriate? I don't know. All right, let's move on. Okay, onto the small notes. I've got multiple things going on here. As you can see, I've got the store called up. You can, for one day only anyway, if you watch this video, you can get the M449. There's several packages, but it's $51.99 for just the tank. So if you're interested in that kind of OP, slightly OP, pretty good tank, then grab it up. It's out there right now. They've got some other things going on in general. We've got a buff coming to the Type 59, the T34-3, and the 59 patent. There's various buffs. The interesting thing about the Type 59 is they're going to help out with the armor, or sorry, help out with the gun on the Type 59, and with the T34-3, they're going to give it Type 59 armor. And I think that's probably the coolest buff of the three, with the T34-3 having Type 59 type turret and hull armor. That will be very interesting out there. The Type gets gun buffs, and the 59 patent's got a couple small things going on. I also noted that as I was looking through things, Erlenberg is being reworked in the super test. Man, I don't even know why. People really have a beef with Erlenberg. I think it's a pretty good tank, but essentially what they're going to do is they're going to increase some of the cover in the middle and rework the two caps, changing where they are and changing the overwatch. What was interesting is when I watched the video, it said they're going to improve the ability of the defenders to defend, and I think that the defenders have a pretty good capability already, so that was an interesting choice of rework, but we'll see how it goes. This is early on that. The USSR heavies and TDs are getting buffs. The IS-7, the ISU-152, and several others are getting buffs, and that's going to play into the next section we're going to talk about here in just a second. And we'll move on to that right now. That's all the small notes. All right, let's get into the sidebar I talked about, which is going to be discussing balance. Have a drink of coffee for this one. I got the mouse called up. You can see it in the background right there, and it's germane to the discussion that we're going to have right now about balance. A while back, they buffed the mouse pretty well, and it's got quite the armor capability at this point. And it really requires number 2 to be pushed to take it on with a lot of the tanks that it faces, unless you can get around it, which is difficult, of course, in the corridor meta that we have going on. And then, of course, we've got the new premiums that have come out which are also well armored and have very few weak spots. So we see weak spots disappearing. We have to see quite a bit of armor. And then we all ask the question, well, how are we going to balance this thing out? Of course, Wargaming has refused to touch the gold ammo issue, which is really the core issue, as I've talked about multiple times in the past. What seems to be happening, based on the buffs that I'm seeing constantly kind of being slow leaked out there, is they are simply buffing everything up to the status of their new OP premiums and the other tanks that they've buffed. So it seems to be at this point what they have decided to do for their balance issue is to buff their way out of it. So they'll just keep increasing the capability of all the tanks around until they feel they've balanced it at some point. Well, of course, that's a fool's errand because it's never going to happen. As long as you've got number 2 that can punch through everything, then you're just going to continue to increase and increase and increase until you get to the point where regular AP or regular shots simply aren't used and everything is going to be flung as gold. So that's the sidebar right there. I'm not really exactly sure what this balance idea is of just buffing things, making the guns better, increasing the armor. I've rarely seen anything lately as far as nerfs go in balance. So if everything goes up, then you have power creep big time. And of course, that's caused by the fact that your gold rounds are completely out of control. That's the sidebar for the balance. And we'll move on to my last section, which is going to be a fun one because it's called How to Pander. Okay, how to pander. I do get on Wargaming's case about things, especially when they kind of deserve it. This is one that has me, doing the dope, smacking my head constantly. I've talked about it in the past as well, especially when it comes to females and male gamers and all of that kind of thing. So this ends up looking a little bit like white knighting, but my point here is, why do you even do this? Because it's just ridiculous. It really is. You see a video that I've got called up right here, and I'll show you just a minute what's going on. This is actually World of Warships. Okay, so it's not tanks, but it is Wargaming. I haven't seen a similar thing for World of Tanks, at least on the NA server as far as it goes. You also note that I have this called up on the Armored Patrol website. I looked around a little bit on Rita's blog. Rita doesn't actually put these particular videos on her blog, even though she covers World of Warships, and I sort of wonder if it's because of the pandering nature of the ridiculousness. All right, so I don't know what she's holding up right there. I'm not I'm not sure what's going on, but anyway, let's listen to this for just a second. Okay, we got some epic music going on.
Greetings, fellow captains. Today I will tell you about the features of Update 0.6.8, a new operation, the second collection, quick messages, and many others. Stay tuned.
All right, that's all you really need to see. Just the whole mannerism, the pandering nature, it's cringy. It really is cringy, Wargaming. I don't understand. I'm sure that plays somewhere. Obviously it does because you keep making them, but I don't get it, man. I don't get it. All right, so then we get to the end of it. This talks about Dunkirk, which is a serious, obvious situation and historical kind of event right there. And they're doing a program for Dunkirk, and that's all good stuff. And she talks on and on about it and Dunkirk and the warships and everything. But then we get to the end after this kind of serious warship Dunkirk thing, and we get to what is, I believe, outtakes. So we get to the end.
Цепочку боевых задач и
And she has no more English translation, and now she's dancing around. And now she's shifting around. Yeah.
Там не было такого. В центре событий окажется прошедший длинный путь до адмирала.
All right, that's enough of that. Oh man, so it goes back to a large extent to the whole PR thing that I've talked about with Wargaming, just kind of the culture and how they run the company and things that they do. That's really just not required. That whole kind of idea. Obviously, get your videos out, get your information out. I don't know. Would I feel better if it was just a big burly guy dancing around? I don't know. It's just at the edge of stupid, really. And every time I see it, I just laugh. All right, so how to pander. I guess you got to know your audience, right? So it's obviously selling something. That's a coffee talk for today. Glad to be back. I know it wasn't anything real serious getting in there today, but there wasn't much going on. We will catch you next time. If you like what you see, make sure you subscribe, like, follow, whatever it is you do with whatever social media it is that you see this thing on, and we will see it.